Okay, this video is going to show you about installing Windows 10 in VirtualBox. I was setting this up for another video and I just thought I'd make a quick video about it. This is to run a virtual machine. You've probably heard people talk about virtualization a lot. We would go first to just Google VirtualBox, and you'll see there are a VirtualBox website. It's very easy. Just click download, and if you were on Windows, you would go to Windows. If you're on OS 10, you go here, and it'll start to download it. I've already downloaded it, so we didn't have to wait for it. The other thing you'll need if you want to put Windows 10, and if you were going to put Linux, you would do that separate. This is a different video. Just Google Windows 10 Microsoft Media Creation Tool, but you want to make sure you're going to Microsoft here, not some third-party stuff that could be a bad ISO with a virus or something in it. We're going to go directly to Microsoft, their Media Creation Tool, their disk image ISO file. And we're doing this in late March 2020, so this can look different over time. We're going to select Windows 10, confirm that, go to English, and confirm that. And, unless you're on some old computer, you're going to want the 64-bit download. And I've already downloaded it, but you would just save it to your computer. And when that's finished, that's the files you needed. So let's go to VirtualBox. We got the DMG file. Now, DMG file is going to open like a virtual disk. It's like a disk image file is how you can think of it. And I see a lot of people that are new to Macs get confused on these. After you're finished with this, you need to eject this, but we're not going to eject it yet. It's like a virtual disk. This is, in a lot of Mac programs, you just drag the application into the, the whole application may be one icon. It's the whole application's in one file. But for VirtualBox and some applications, you have to run an installer, more like how you run in Windows. So in this one, you have to run an installer. So we'll just double click it, continue, continue, continue. You'll have to authenticate. And it'll take it just a little bit to run the files here. It's very simple. Okay, we're going to have to open, because of the security rules in Mac, we're going to have to unlock. They've made the security rules so tight that it's almost hard to use. We're going to allow, but it makes it very hard for a virus to get on your system. We're going to allow VirtualBox to run. So let's run it again. Okay, and now it succeeded because we allowed it through the security, the gatekeeper security on the Mac. Now it's installed, so we ought to be able to eject this. So remember to do that. You might not want to delete this in case you have to reinstall, but this little virtual disk you can eject. A lot of people, I'll see it those virtual disks sitting on their desktop forever. So let's go to Applications and find VirtualBox. And I'm going to get a warning the first time I run this. Oh, didn't. Okay. We already allowed it through. And here's VirtualBox. Now this is a virtual machine manager, and essentially what this does is create a virtual computer that you can run other operating systems in that are isolated from your main system. Let's create a new one. So we'll click the big new button here. Generally, if you just name it, if you put the name of the machine that you're creating to include what system you're creating, it'll go ahead and change these options here. You see when I put Windows 10, it changed this to Windows 10 automatic. And I'm going to call this one a YouTube, let's call that. So I'll click continue. This, how much memory you want to give it, it can run on 2 gigabytes, but if you have and a lot of people might only have 4 gigabytes in their machine or 8, you want to play with that and how many virtual machines you're going to have running. I have 32 gigabytes in here. This virtual machine is not going to be doing anything heavy, but I'm gonna bump it up to 4 gigabytes of memory. And I could run multiple machines at one time inside of my Mac all at the same time. So I'll click continue. We're going to let it just create a new disk. The default's good enough. And we'll leave it at the default here. Now, this dynamically or fixed size, we could create a hard drive that's, X number of gigabytes large. We could make it fixed size, but then it would take up all that room, even if you don't need to take up that much room. By dynamically allocated, it's going to create a disk that looks like it might be, let's say, 80 gigabyte disk. But if I'm only have 10 gigabytes of data, it's only going to actually use up that much room on my disk. So we're going to use dynamically allocated so we don't use up any more resources on the host computer than we have to. And it's saying 50. I might even boot that up. But remember, since it's dynamic, it's not going to actually use this space here. It's not going to actually use 80 gigabytes unless it has to, which we're not going to. And it created our virtual computer here. But before we install Windows, let's just do a couple of things. Let's check a few settings. There's nothing we really need to mess up here, but on the system, you'll see we've got our 4 gigabytes of data. Look, by default, it puts you at 1 CPU. Now, this computer is a 6-core Intel Mac, but that 6-core has hyper-threading, so you'll see here that it looks, and you'll also see that had 32 gigs of RAM, so I had plenty enough room to give this Windows more RAM if I wanted to. But you see it says I have 12 CPUs. That's because it's a 6-core, but it's hyper-threaded, so it looks like 12 CPUs. So I could put all the way up to 6 here before it gives me a problem, but I want to run more than one machine at the time, so I don't need to do that. I could probably give it 4 and another 4, but for the purpose of the type of work I'm going to be doing on this, just for demos, basic desktop stuff, I don't need a lot of power, so a dual 2 CPUs is probably enough. That would be equivalent to having a dual core processor. If you have a quad core processor without hyper-threading, which is probably a lot of people have, then you'd only show 4 CPUs instead of 12. Or a 6-core without hyper-threading would show 6 CPUs instead of 12. But if you can, this one CPU is going to run a little slow usually. This will make, by bumping it to 2, I find it usually runs pretty well. Okay, in the past, this used to default down to 0 with the video memory, and always you would turn it up to 128, but it looks like lately they're doing the 128. I'm not going to mess with this yet. The one thing I'm going to do right here, this NAT setting is perfectly fine for everyday running of your virtual machine. That puts it behind a network address translation. It's kind of like how you are on your router. Your computer is behind the NAT of your router, or network address relation. It's basically almost like a firewall, and changes to an internal network from the external network. Your host computer, in this case a Mac, is performing NAT services and putting a network inside a VirtualBox network. But we don't. The only thing I'm going to do right now, though, I'm going to turn off the network, because on Windows 10 in the latest versions, they won't let you set up a local user account. They're trying to force you to set up a Microsoft account instead of a local user account. You don't want that for just playing on a machine, unless it's unless you want it to be. Then just leave the network on and sign into your Microsoft account. But this by not having internet access, by not attaching it to a network, that means it won't have internet access, hopefully, and that'll mean that we'll be able to install Windows without and set up a local account like we didn't plug in the internet. If you were doing this on a physical machine installing Windows and you want to do that, just don't plug it into or connect to with a wire or connect it to the Wi-Fi until after you have Windows installed. And that should be enough right here. Now we can set up shared folders, and that's a little more advanced. We're not going to mess with that right now. So we got the settings we want. Let's start the Windows computer, but this, it's looking for a disk. We're going to click this little folder here and choose that ISO file. And they've changed the interface here. And Windows has made this really strict here. This is the, Mac. You have to allow access. So now I picked my, that's the Windows 10 that we downloaded from Microsoft. So let's go ahead and start it. Okay, English, and US. We're going to leave that at that. We're in the US here, and we're going to install now. And depending on how fast this may be, it'll depend on how, you know, if I cut away. Look, I'm presuming you're just doing this for a test, and you're not going to activate Windows right now. You're just going to use it for a test or a demo. If you had a key that you wanted to use and activate this virtual machine, you could put it in here. If not, you can just hit I don't have a key. And presuming a lot of people are probably using home, let's just leave it on the default of home for right now. You'll have to accept the license terms. We're going to hit custom because, you know, you generally need to do that if you're going from scratch. There's nothing on this drive, so we just select that drive. We created that virtual drive, and you see it says it's 80 gigabytes, but it's not actually taking up very much space at all on our computer right now. It's just, it can take up to 80. We're just going to hit next, and it's going to start copying files over, and well, it's going pretty quick. This is the part I was scared I'd have to cut away from, depending on how slow this is. I don't want to make this video too long. Now this is essentially the same thing you do when you're setting up Windows on a physical machine. So at this part, you know, this is how you install Windows on your computer. Say if you had a Windows computer and it got a virus and you need to clean it out, you just want to start fresh again, this is how you would do it. Also, all of this. The only thing that's different is the VirtualBox versus running it on the physical machine. At some point here, we're going to get to the part where hopefully it's not talking to the internet and it's going to complain about that, and it's going to really try to force us to use a Microsoft account instead of a local account. That's one of the controversial things that's happened recently. I don't know why Microsoft is doing some of this stuff. Windows 10 is a good operating system. It's very stable, runs well, and it's like they're trying to destroy it with pushing advertisements into your start menu, pushing things like trying to force you to set up a Microsoft account, having unreliable updates that are, you know, messing up people's systems, changing the interface. It's like they created a wonderful operating system and they're trying to break it. I don't understand why. This is going fairly quick, so I think we can just run straight through. We'll just go ahead and hit the restart button here. And what was this pop-up back here? I'm going to allow this permission through. Okay, I'm going to have to restart VirtualBox at some point. These security settings in the Mac is really wonderful for protecting you from viruses. It has gotten a little bit difficult for doing more advanced things right now. And this part's taking a little while. It's probably going to complain a little bit because it can't talk to the internet. We blocked it. And she's rebooting. And hopefully it's going to come back up now where we start the setup process. For Windows, I mean. Again, this part's, you know, should be just like if you were installing Windows on a bare metal machine now. And there it goes, the Windows setup.
Hi there. Here to help. A little sign in here, a touch of Wi-Fi there, and we'll have your PC ready for all you plan to do. Use use your voice or the keyboard along the way, and if you'd like me to stay quiet, just select the little microphone icon towards the bottom of your...
Okay, we're going to shut her up. You know. Okay, enough intro. Let's dig in. We're in the United States here, so we'll pick that. If you were in another country, you'd pick that. This is going to be for your keyboard and localization features. We're going to use the US keyboard, and we don't need I don't need a second keyboard, so I'm going to skip that. Now, no internet. This is the part where, you know, I'm doing this on purpose right now to try to, so that I'll be able to get past Windows annoying not allowing you to set up a local account if you have internet access. So I'm going to click I don't have internet, and she's going to complain. Click down here on the left. You see this connect now. It's going to try to connect you to the internet. We say we'll continue with a limited setup, and they're calling local accounts limited now, conveniently. Now I can set up a local account instead of a Microsoft account. And I'm just going to type in my name here. Okay, next. Make up a password. Look, just lie on these. Security question, but don't make something stupid as this. This is just a demo computer I'm going to delete. Don't put stupid things like this on here. But if you put something that your friends and family know, then they can do the password recovery and get it. So just lie on these. Oh. The reason you lie is because people that know you can guess your answers. And we're just going to say no to this. And we're going to decline to use Cortana. Look, if you want Microsoft giving them permission to spy on everything you do, go ahead and leave these on. But if not, turn these off. Now, does that mean that they're not doing it? No. But at least you're not giving them permission, and it's turning off a lot of things. And we're about to boot into Windows here and be done. And then remember, I might have to shut off VirtualBox and restart everything, and I'll turn on my network again. Matter of fact, I could turn on network here in a moment when we get logged in, probably. It's just waiting for Windows to finish setting up our account. This, again, this part is exactly like it would be if you were on a physical machine installing Windows. Just remember, if you wanted to do that local account trick, just don't connect to your internet until you're to your desktop. Whether that's with a wired Ethernet cable or with Wi-Fi. If it's Wi-Fi, just don't connect until you're finished with the setup and you're on the Windows desktop. Then you can connect to Wi-Fi. Or if it's with a wire, after you get to your desktop and your account set up and everything, then you can plug in the wire or your Wi-Fi. In VirtualBox, we could do it over, you know, back in the controller here. We can go back in the settings and turn the network on. And since I don't need to be on the same network as the Mac is, I can be behind another firewall. I'm just going to leave it back at the default setting of NAT, Network Address Translation. Now, you can run Windows on a Mac in boot camp, which means you would restart the computer and run it as a bare metal Windows computer, and that's good if you're running games or different things. But if you just want to use Windows for demos or for certain, you know, productivity software in a virtual machine, it runs fine. Now, look, I could probably just turn this on while we're here. You know, at this point now, you could plug in your Ethernet cable or go and connect to your Wi-Fi. If you had this computer, you know, doesn't have a Wi-Fi connection, so it's not going to see it. But you could do that now. I'm going to go here and see if we can turn it on before I turn this off. Put it back on that. Let's click OK. And see if it gets internet connection. And yes, it did. Now, this is really annoying. Now it's got internet. Now there is also the VirtualBox extensions. I can go up here and, you know, click on it, make sure VirtualBox is in the top of your Mac up here, not the Finder. insert guest edition CD, and that's going to insert basically a virtual CD-ROM disk in this computer. And I could probably click right here and say run. No. I'm just going to run the little application. What this is going to do is install drivers to make this run better as a virtual machine. Just make everything run more natively. I can go full screen, easily resize the machine. None of that stuff works quite as well without installing these extensions. This is basically your drivers, and you would do this if you were installing on a bare metal machine. You're going to install the chipset drivers for your motherboard. So I'll just let the Windows reboot, and it's going to be done as far as that goes. So that's going to be the end of this video, and thank you.